The force surrounds us and penetrates us. It's what binds the galaxy together. You must unlearn what you have learned. Every aspect of your life is impacted by taxes, whether you know it or not. This podcast will help educate you and uneducate you. The latest clickbait tax trend. Is it accurate? This podcast is for regular people. It may be hosted by a CPA and certified financial planner, but it's not for us. Instead, this is a place where I can tell you about the time that I used tax law. Yes, tax law, to save a couple's marriage, or using financial planning to stop a father and daughter from being estranged from each other. I'm Cecily Welch, the accountant you can understand. I help people navigate and understand the one thing that impacts every aspect of your financial life: taxes. Welcome to the Tax Translator podcast. Hey listeners, just so you know you're not crazy, yes, the Tax Translator podcast appears on 2 YouTube channels, Georgia Society of CPAs and Cecily Welch. Please subscribe in both places. It's just that us CPAs, we have to take continuing education, and so we'll usually take it on the Georgia Society of CPAs channel, but both are exactly the same. Do us a favor, subscribe in both places. Thanks. If your eyes glaze over every time someone says tax planning, or if when that time of year comes around, you close your eyes, sign, and pray, you're in the right place. I'm Cecily Welch, the accountant you can understand, and this is the Tax Translator. We are going to talk about tax law and how it impacts your life, normal, regular, everyday stuff. No jargon, no judgment, and not boring. I want to get started today introducing my guest. So, tax law is complex. Whether it should or shouldn't be is up for debate. And frankly, I wish that it wasn't. But the thing is, most people don't know that tax law is written by legislators.
Yes.
Everyday people who spend their time running business, raising kids, et cetera, et cetera. We have with us today the Honorable David Wilkerson, who is a CPA, Georgia State Representative, Minority Whip.
Past Minority Whip.
Past Minority Whip. Yes. You've been in the legislature for how many years now?
Since 2011, so this is my 16th year.
16th year. Yeah. Also a business owner,
yes,
husband, father, et cetera, et cetera. So you have been an integral part of one of the biggest tax bills that people actually paid attention to this past year, and that's Bill 33. I want us to eventually get into that a little bit and explain it, if you can, in English. But first, talk to me about you. How did you get there? Why did you get there? What is it like?
So, CPA, went to North Carolina A&T, like Aggie my fellow Aggie. Yes, and so got involved in politics a number of years ago, just on the local level, running the Democratic Party of Cobb County, first African-American chair, then decided to run for office, ran as state representative, won. And so I just enjoy public service. I get the tax policy, I get the people policy, and it gives a great opportunity to actually do some good, hopefully, for Georgia.
So let me ask this. First, I should officially ask. So I want it normal. We're just having a conversation. Can I call you David?
Yes, you can. Fine? Yes, please do.
You're a fellow
yes,
Aggie.
Yes, 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 you can.
All right. Okay. So you got involved in public policy. When you say you had an interest in it and you found you enjoyed it, what enjoyed? Explain to me what's enjoyment, because I suspect people are skeptical about that.
No, so growing up, my father started a boys club when I was younger, so I got to see how he would interact with people, and he worked with youth, and whether you thought they were a good kid or a bad kid, they were a kid, and he talked to them that way, and I saw his interactions and the positive impact he had. And then you start watching politics, and of course you watch it nationally, you see what's going on, but then you realize that everything you deal with is local, at the state level or the local level. You see a pothole, you don't like your property taxes, you don't like your income taxes, you want to do something about schools. And so fortunately, my wife and family are okay with me doing this, and so that makes a big difference. But yeah, I do enjoy it. I wouldn't be doing it for this long because it's definitely not the pay.
Definitely not the pay.
Yeah.
That's because this isn't your full-time gig.
Oh, no.
So I'm from Detroit originally. Detroiters hustle harder, just saying. And I'm a very Midwest person. I've been here for 25 years, but the way that you learn this stuff kind of sticks with you. Georgia's very different than other places I've been. I didn't realize initially that this wasn't your full-time gig.
Correct. It is not a full-time. We are technically in session from the second Monday in January until about beginning of April. So those 3 months we're down at the Capitol voting, going to committees. After that, you spend a lot of time in the district, handling constituency issues, working on bills for the next session. So while we're only in session for those 3 months, you could be doing stuff year round. Not everybody does, but a lot of us do. So like I'll be out talking about this over the next several months. But yeah, so it is part-time.
It's a full-time job in terms of time, depending on how you approach it, but in terms of pay, you're a business owner.
Exactly. And so we do have a large swath of type of business. We have some teachers, we have business owners, we have people that are farmers, pharmacists, and the people I don't know what they do, retirees as well. So
that's fair.
It's a cross section of the state.
Well, that's such a short time period to get things done.
You don't want us there longer. I mean, the reality is, and the crazy thing is, when we start a new session, and usually that first month, bills are getting dropped. They're going to committee, so it's almost like a funnel.
Stop.
Yeah.
Bills are getting dropped. They're going to committee. What
right.
does that mean?
Exactly. So I've got someone has an idea. They want to do something in their community. Let's say they want to change property taxes. Okay. They'll come up with a bill, have legislative council draft that bill, get input, and then they'll put into a hopper, which is really literally a brown box that you put it in, and then the speaker will look at it and they'll sign it to a committee. So certain bills go to certain committees.
I'm walking around my neighborhood. It's driving me bananas. I don't think that there is enough funding for the schools. I call you and go, we need to do something about this.
Yes, and then we try our hardest. We work on it. A good example is HOAs.
Okay,
For years, we've heard complaints about HOAs. Donzella James, the senator, had been working on this bill for a number of years, had committee meetings, and so we came back and said, no one should...
What was supposed to be, what was the problem that people had with HOAs?
Okay. So one of the problems was that, let's say you have something in your front yard that violates the HOA. You have a little statue in your front yard. That HOA could fine you literally every day until you remove that statue.
So people, the abuse of HOAs.
The abuse of HOAs.
Okay.
Or let's say, you don't cut your grass. Or you have a shingle that you can't repair. This happened during the pandemic, where someone might have a shingle they didn't repair, the HOA would fine them, and then literally they could fine them $100 a day. I had one constituent who's had a bill of $59,000 for not doing something, and then 2 months later that bill was $80,000. And so what we say, and you could actually foreclose on someone's home because of that.
Correct.
So now the law says that you can only foreclose if it's behind 12 months and it's a certain amount, and it can only be due based on the dues, not all these extra
Not on
fees,
the extra fines. So
extra fines.
All those things that we read about when we're at our computer and they come across our feed and someone's complaining about this and their HOA and HOA.
It was real.
A potential solution is, besides us, of course, venting and threatening to sue the HOA, but what we had to do was actually change the law.
Yeah, and it was tried for a number of years.
To change the law.
It was tried until the day that a very powerful chairman started getting calls from his constituents. And then he's like, okay, let's work together on this. So the reality is you not only have to reach out to people that has been happening, but you also have to make sure the right people hear about it and that they take an interest. And so that's why citizen engagement is so important, because it did allow that bill to pass with bipartisan support.
So citizen engagement. Tactical, what does that mean? Because I think people are they have a thought about what they want to change, but we never quite know, how do we contact you? How do we approach? What do we say? What don't we say? Don't you all know intuitively? Yep. I know the answer is, no, you don't know intuitively. Because how could they not know this is going on?
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, y'all don't know all the stuff that's going on.
Exactly. And that's why when I say citizen engagement, some people will volunteer on campaigns. Some people will just call them up and say, hey, I'm seeing this in my community. But the key is, form emails are probably the worst way to do it, because you just get a form, you send it, and then we get 50 emails with the same thing. But if you just say, hey, I have this issue, how can you help me? Or this is what I'm seeing in my community, how can you help me? And that does make a difference, because a lot of us that's how we'll get ideas a lot of times, is we see something that's happening and we want to help bring a solution forward.
So those form letters and form emails are like the lowest hanging fruit, but they're not necessarily going to be as impactful as you hope they're going to be.
Yeah, if you say, if I get an email that says, "Dear legislator, I'm your constituent," you look down and they live in South Georgia, then you're like, okay, they're not my constituent. Because what really matters is, one, the key is your constituents. Reach out to the person that represents you. You can find that on the, different sites. The League of Women Voters has a site that you can put in your address. There's a different way to find it. Those are the most important. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Just like, I need help, or can you take a look at this, or property tax are killing me, or whatever. And we can have that conversation back and forth. But what I'll see sometimes is people will send the form emails, and you respond back to them. They never respond. So they're really just shooting off emails, and they're upset about something, but I don't know if they're necessarily trying to get to a solution.
You absolutely have to have the next step in the connectivity. So
Yeah.
I think it's fair to reiterate that, like it or not, fair, unfair, right or wrong, however you view it, if someone is your constituent, it matters more.
Yep.
But how could it not?
Yes.
We'd like to act like it doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is,
Yeah.
right. And also, don't assume you're not going to get a ping back. You don't just get a pile of stuff and go, well, here's my pile. You do actually try and reach back out to get some more information.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And again, a lot of the legislators, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, rural, metro, yeah, I do see a lot of engagement back and forth. And so that's why it's important to not only send emails to the people that you helped elect, but even if you voted against them, that does not matter, because once
You're
we get
still a
elected,
constituent.
you're still a constituent.
Okay, and just like you said, the way that this particular bill that had been around for a minute
Yeah.
got attention, was it because it happened to get attention by the right person
Exactly.
at the time who needed to see it at that time?
Yes. And there's another way too. There are different committees that handle different bills. So also it's important to make sure that committee knows about it. So if you're dealing with, a school issue, feel free to send it to the education committee.
So how do I know that? How do I find that there is an education committee, and when you say reach out to them, what does that mean?
So there's a website, the legislative website. So if you look up Georgia General Assembly, it will take you to a website,
Okay.
www.legis.ga.gov. But just search General Assembly.
Okay.
And there you'll be able to see the House, you'll be able to see the Senate, and you'll be able to see all the different members. So ideally, you want to reach out to your representative first. And then also, if you see a bill coming up through a committee, because on that website, you'll see all the different committees. Some of them make sense, some of them don't. Like, education is education. Public safety is public safety. Ways and Means is a tax committee. So you may not know that. So, that's why you can always ask your representative, or just call and say, hey, I'm trying to get this. How do I find out? And you could track that committee and see what bills are coming up. So I'll get an email from somebody and say, hey, this is important to me, and this is why, and it's coming through your committee. Please consider it. Always be nice, Elected officials are sensitive,
You ruin all
You don't
my
want to
fun.
threaten. You don't want to threaten.
Be
You
nice.
see that sometimes, like, if you don't do this, I'm gonna, like, okay, it's gonna take 50 other thousand people of you to say the same thing. But yeah, just be nice, because we're all trying to do it for the right reason.
Fine. So I'm saying this into the camera so I remember. I'm going to add in the edit portion at the end. I have no clue if this particular site is partisan, nonpartisan. I assume it's nonpartisan, but it is by far the best site that I have ever found with the respective elected leaders and where they are and how to find it's all in one place.
Yes.
I'm mad that I don't remember off the top of my head right now. I'm gonna have to add it.
Yeah.
But I found it to be extremely practical because it reminds me of way back when we first got engaged in caring about the election and caring about what people were voting. It was on the front page who voted for what.
Yeah.
Now you have to do research and double click, and nobody has time. And the legislative session being as short as it is, you've got a ton to track. We're supposed to track it too, and we've got to be like, this is past. That's a lot of work.
It is. It is a lot of work. But like I said, everybody has their different issues. You kind of watch the press, but then the press is doing the same thing. So I'll see a story in the press. I'm like, that's not what happened. That's not what that bill says. Please read the bill, especially with the tax stuff. That you're seeing it more and more, and I'm like, that's not what that says. It's like the cursory level. Go a little deeper. And so, yeah, we see the same frustrations.
And so I specifically was talking about Bill 33 because it's about property taxes. And this is a perfect segue into talking about how difficult it is, because this is our profession. We are living in a world where it's sound bites.
Yes.
There's so little in tax law that lends itself to being accurate in a soundbite.
Yes.
So talk about what the press is saying it is, what it should, what people want it to be, and maybe what it actually is. Like, and I'm gonna ask you to talk about this bill for property taxes slowly, because this is a perfect example of we should care about this, and we glaze over like whatever tax law, and then 2 years from now, everyone's going to be up in arms because of something that has just happened that we didn't know.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, the easiest way to describe it is people are hurting right now. Stuff is too expensive. You know, whether it's groceries, whether it's gasoline, whether it's your tax on your home, people feel like things are too expensive. And government's growing. But even if you say the local governments are growing too much, the state budget has grown 50% in the last 5 years. At least. So it's not like we aren't growing. Hey, you know, money's coming in. So, you know, growth, economic development. So, yes,
doesn't matter.
The math doesn't matter. But
ahead.
So you had a lot of federal infusion as well. And so Senate Bill 33, first, you'll hear that it's unconstitutional because it impacts state revenue, and any bill that impacts state revenue originates in the House.
Okay, wait.
So
repeat what you just said slowly, the same thing. Because sometimes people, you might see a soundbite that says, this bill is unconstitutional.
Yes.
Why might they see that soundbite?
Okay. The law says that any bill that impacts state revenue. Which property taxes impact state revenue? Okay, I'll add to that.
Okay.
Senate Bill 33 was passed late on the night on the last day of session, comes to the House. The general consensus was that this would impact state revenue, not because of the property tax piece, but because there was a piece in there related to education. Because it was related to education and kind of property taxes. Mm-hmm. So a combination there. Everybody kind of looked at each other. So for an hour, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were trying to figure out what to do. And
trying to figure out what to do because
they knew it was unconstitutional. Senate, and it was unconstitutional.
But it should have, if it impacted. I'm saying this as a statement, but I'm asking a question. Because it potentially impacted state revenue per the Constitution, it should have been introduced from the House, but it was introduced from the Senate.
Yes, Senate Bill 33. Right? Yes, had nothing to do with taxes. They were looking for a vehicle. And so all the work that was done by the House Republicans on taxes kind of went to the wayside. So what they were forced to do is decide either we pass an unconstitutional bill, which is only going to get overturned if someone sues, and you have to have standing to sue, but that's the legal issue. We'll leave that up to the attorneys on that one. Or take an hour, figure out what to do, and then just pass it without taking any questions. So they got up there, they passed it, and now when you ask, is this bill constitutional? They will respond, well, the governor signed it. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't make it constitutional. And so that is just the, inside baseball or the legality side of it.
The soundbite that we're getting and why we get that soundbite, I think it's important to point out, because we always think people, like, well, you can't do something because that's not the right way. It's not written that way. But the fact is that stuff happens. I shouldn't say all the time, because it should not happen all the time. But it does happen. It does happen. It's similar to, oh crap, I'm recording this. I shouldn't say this. But I've been known on occasion to drive. My right foot is a little heavier than my left. But yes, it is illegal to speed.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But my right foot's a little heavier than it.
Yeah.
So frequently when we see things like that, I think people go, what? That you kind of discount that with a grain of salt. Like, that couldn't, whatever. That's someone sensationalizing something. Mm-hmm. But it's not. A bill was passed that is contradictory to what the Constitution said it should have been.
Yes.
Correct.
And everybody pretty much knew that when we were leaving.
Okay.
So the
but like you said, it's such a short session. You're just like, I got to get it done. Here, we got to do something tonight.
Yeah. And so they were put in the situation where they promised tax relief, and this is, by on it, we're going to do it.
Okay.
But all it did was say, okay, now that we have this law in place, going forward, we can have local acts, which a local delegation come back and say, okay, we want to swap out property taxes for sales tax. That's the easiest way to look at it is do you want to swap out a part of your property taxes by creating a new sales tax?
Okay, so soundbite, unconstitutional, over there. We just discussed what that means.
Yep.
What it says, the bill itself says, is property taxes that even those of us who think we understand it basically are, here's the value of your home or commercial building, here's the tax rate on it, send money to the coffers so that the government can run.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. But this bill is saying, instead of property taxes, because we still need money, because it costs money to pave a road
Yes.
or whatever. When you say you can elect to do sales, who's you?
So the way it works is somebody creates a bill. We talked about driving a bill.
Okay.
They create a bill and says, okay, in the city of, name the city, Santa Claus.
Okay.
The city of Santa Claus, we want to not pay as much property taxes initially. So what we're going to do is create a 1 penny sales tax. And so
Okay.
they'll go to the voters and say, do you want to reduce property taxes by creating a 1 penny sales tax?
And in theory, part of why you want to do this is you are raising funds from people who are spending money. It's a consumer tax instead of I happen to live here tax type of thing.
That's in some communities, yes. So there
Okay.
are some communities that will do that. So take a Cobb County. We get people coming to the Brave Stadium. We get people passing through. Some of these counties, the only thing they have is a Piggly Wiggly or an Ingles or a local store. They're not getting through traffic. For them, they're just adding more taxes to them.
That's what the bill says, but the bill, of course, does not take into consideration those things.
Correct.
It's you can do this or you can do that. Whether it makes sense for you to do this or that, not a problem.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And so what happens is they collect the sales tax, then they come back and say, okay, offset everybody's property taxes by a certain dollar amount. So if you look at the state of Georgia, 2/3 of people own their homes.
Okay.
1/3 rent. So
Mm-hmm.
the 1/3 will get no benefit whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
None, because they rent. Now what ends up happening is their rental apartments, though, they still pay taxes.
Yeah.
So it's still built into your rent. So you're going to get no relief. It does not apply to schools either, which for most people, that's the majority of your bill. So in a lot of counties, that could be, half, more than 60%.
So majority of your bill, meaning your property tax bill has
Is
pieces
schools.
that build up to
Schools and county and cities. Those are your big 3 buckets.
okay that are paid for
For by
via
property taxes.
Okay.
However, because of the Constitution, you cannot use penny sales taxes to reduce school taxes.
So the school taxes are going to be the school taxes.
School taxes.
They are not impacted by Bill 33.
Yep, by Senate Bill 33. They're not from that standpoint. That is correct. So the easiest way to look at it is: do you want to relieve one tax by creating a new tax?
Mm-hmm.
That's the easiest way to look at it.
Okay.
Is do you want to relieve property taxes of some sort by creating a sales tax? The challenge is that there is nothing stopping. The way your property tax are calculated is the value of your home times the percentage gives you a dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say you get this new sales tax in, you reduce that amount. There's nothing stopping you from raising that percentage, that millage rate, and getting more revenue, but then offsetting it. So let's say you get enough of $300 in sales tax that comes across. Property tax go down by $300. But you raise the property taxes slightly, so now the property tax only go down by $200. So the homeowners only sees a $200 decrease, but the county gets $100 extra revenue because there's nothing stopping them from raising the millage rate. Their assessment cap is the percentage that you pay.
The percentage on your property.
Exactly. There's nothing stopping them from raising the percentage that you pay. So if I'm a county or city, some of them are going to look at this as a great way to raise revenue, is because instead of giving you full relief for those sales taxes, you only give partial relief. So your bill looks lower, but the reality is your local government is collecting more. I know. Okay, so let me back up.
So okay,
go
right,
ahead.
I'm going of the multiple moving parts and how it all works together. Having this conversation is an example of why I tell people we even want it simpler. We do want it simpler, but how do we make this part simpler?
Yeah. There are 159 counties.
Okay.
536 cities, 180 school districts. You cannot sit in the back of the room at the Capitol and come up with good tax policy in a matter of hours, and that's what they try to do with this Senate Bill 33.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at retirement bills, I'm going to give you a perfect example. Retirement bills impact everybody's retirement from a state employee standpoint or teachers.
Okay, yes.
The way it works, we have a 2-year session. A bill has to be introduced in the first year,
Okay.
You study it over the summer, and you vote on it in the second year. So you'll never have these last minute things happening. We should do the same thing with tax bills. Introduce in the first year, let everybody go home, and then come back and do it
Say
next
that
year.
again. So that's not what we would like to think, is that all bills are that way. You've got time to think about them and analyze them. And no, they aren't. But there's a subsection of bills that do have to do that.
Retirement's the
bills
one
do.
bill, because retirement, we have an amazing retirement plan as far as how funded it is across the state. I mean, across the country, we have one of the better funded ones because we do a lot of work. A fellow CPA is the head of that committee.
The head of that committee. So for that specific item, it is. Are there other items that are that way, or is it just the retirement?
Because it's such impact. So we should do the same with people's own personal finances. Is that you introduce a bill in the first year, you study it, let all the politics get out of the way. You go back to your local communities and explain it, and then you vote on it the second year. So what?
And you're still not going to have tons of people happy with it, but you get better.
You get
better
much
laws.
better results. So what ends up happening is you get a chance to debate it.
That's the whole point. No one's going to agree with everything.
You get to go back home and talk to people about how this will impact it. I mean, Florida is now got something on the ballot where they're trying to eliminate property taxes, and they actually are raising the exemption so high that local governments are saying they're going to go belly up, or they're going to have to cut a bunch of services or raise sales taxes or some other way to find money. And so the governor of Florida has said, I'm going to vote for it, but I'm not going to campaign for it. Meaning that's how bad the bill is. And if you go to the AJC today, you'll see the rerun of the New York Times story. But they are the first ones to really try to push the full elimination of property taxes, and they realize that they're going to destroy all their local communities.
Well, we've talked about this before, and anyone who's ever watched this podcast knows I do this for a living, did this for a living. My whole function in life is I care about people. The world cares about money. I figure the more people who know about money, the better the world will be.
Yes.
Regardless of what you care about, it is in the tax law.
So
we need to understand it.
Yep.
Whether you like it, don't like it, that's where it is. That's where it happens.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm all about cutting taxes. But what does that cost me? I don't like talking about cutting taxes as step one. Step one is, what are our costs?
Exactly.
Like, I can't, I'm a math, we're math people.
Yep.
I'm like, we're CPAs. I'm going, we cannot address how much money we need to raise until we actually have, what are we going to spend it on?
Exactly. And that's the thing is, this weekend.
But there's how many CPAs in the?
Ooh, there's 2 in the House at this point and 1 in the Senate, I believe.
And it's not that, everybody has to have a CPA lens, because CPAs, we don't all agree with each other either. But
exactly.
We view things in a specific way. We view the number side of it. And you do need to have a ton of people working together. But when it comes to trying to explain the math part of these decisions, how is that a challenge for you?
In some ways it is when you get into the details, but the reality is we all have family budgets, I hope, and they all love their communities and they all love their schools, and want them to do the best. So yes, explaining how our policy matches up with the law sometimes can be difficult, and you can't do it in the heat of all the other things happening at the Capitol. And so when I watch some of my colleagues try to pass a bill that requires 2/3, and Democrats say, we can't pass this because it's going to impact local communities. And they're like, yeah, but these sales taxes could help. And I'm like, you don't have any business in your community. It's all homeowner driven. It's all property tax driven. And so you're not going to help them. What you're going to do is force every person to pay more for their groceries, pay more for their gas, pay more for the utility bills. All of these things have your gas, your power bill, all of them have sales tax in it. And so what you're going to do is force people to pay more, and they just can't afford it at the time. So it does, you get past politics, but we do have to navigate it, and we have some time now. I know I'll be traveling the state to talk about this, from big counties to small cities, because again, we have cities with 200 people. We have cities, we have counties, I have schools that are bigger than a lot of cities in some counties, and so it's important for us and me as kind of the lead policy person on this for my caucus is to understand and talk to people that are,
and to try and get them to understand it.
Yeah, get them to
Thus
understand it.
being on the Tax Translator.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about a great plug, right?
Exactly.
So we said for that particular bill, because it's property tax, we talked about the soundbite is going to be that it's unconstitutional. And then the other soundbite is it will or won't work for you depending on where you get your news, what it's going to say.
Yeah, it won't work for most communities because the reality is 2 counties have a 6% sales tax rate. That is Cobb and Gwinnett. The highest you can go in the state is 9%. There are 20 plus counties that have 9%. And so even when you're shopping, you're going to start going to the places that have a lower sales tax rate. And when you give relief, we've given relief in Cobb County, for example. When you're 62, you don't pay any school taxes. When your assessment goes up on your home, it's frozen, so you never pay more taxes just because the value goes up because your exemption goes up at the same time. And so we believe in giving relief without giving a new tax. And so others may not have that same opportunity just based on business climate.
And what their county
and
looks like. The counties are so different.
Yeah, the counties are so different. Powder Springs is different than Smyrna. And so you really have to kind of tailor this relief to the counties that you're in.
And what you said about this bill was the constituents, the community can decide, I'm going to do sales tax instead of property tax. But then even if they did that, there's still space that the property taxes could still be raised later. So
Yes.
It's not truly a replacement.
Exactly. And I'll give you a perfect example. We have a county that passed Bullock County. I'll just mention Bullock County. They passed the floss, which was the last attempt to do this. Immediately after that, the school system raised their property tax, I want to say 37% on the schools. So people voted for it, went to the ballot, expect to see a decrease, and they're actually going to see an increase.
Because the cost to run a school is
the cost to run a school is the cost to run a school, and the bill doesn't do anything with school taxes. It just
Because it still had to fill the gap.
It did cap the assessment, but you can raise the millage rate. And so it's there are going to be a lot of shocked people, and so as they look at their property tax bills this year,
because they're expecting it to go down.
they're expecting to go down. And some of these counties have
necessarily.
passed the floss.
All right, so I know we said this is conversational, but I am an accountant after all, so I have notes. I want to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so walk me through an example of how your being a business owner and a CPA has helped and also hindered you as you're negotiating fun stuff at the Capitol.
It at this point, everybody develops a reputation for certain things. I mean, mine, I think at this point is I support cutting taxes. I've signed off on tax cuts. I've signed off on, and advocated for tax cuts that are responsible. I've also fought against ones that I thought were bad. And so you start to develop that reputation. So as a general basis, whether we agree or disagree on the policy direction, I think people will agree that I have a decent understanding of the tax law and the property tax law and kind of where we're going. And I will work with them until, even on the property tax bills, they kept changing it, changed time after time after time. And a week before session ended, I was like, okay, pencils are down. Pencils are down. No good tax policy is going to happen at this point. I mean, just like nothing good happens after midnight, no good tax policy is going to happen these last several days. And that's what we saw. We saw House Bill 463 create a $1.2 billion hole in the budget that the governor had to do something about. So I think at this point, I see it as a positive. Every time I speak, I don't say I'm a CPA and I'm a business owner. I just say, hey, this is what I see. And I think my colleagues understand where I'm coming from. So I see it as a positive.
Speaking of looking at the math and the minutia, and you have to look at the minutia, and it's sometimes hard to get people to understand that. So we're in the beautiful studios for Georgia Society of CPAs, and they've got a PAC. I did a podcast about some of the multi-entity nonprofits and why you would have them. And we do have different programs where I'm gonna do the math. Does this work? Does this not work? Is it good tax policy, bad tax policy in terms of administration, in terms of all those things, not in a partisan way. And I distinctly remember, because the state hall does have pushes to how do we reduce taxes. And when federal upped the standard deduction.
Yes.
And we were attempting to determine how Georgia was going to react. And the bill that came through flipped deduction versus exemption.
Yes.
And the whole, well, we shouldn't get in the minutia. We have to get in the minutia. We as CPAs were going, hold it, stop. We were trying to very calmly, as an organization, say, well, wait, I believe the term you really mean is this, and the word needs to change, and those things. Tax law is law. It matters to people.
Yes, it does. It does. And I remember when that happened, and that's why it's so important that you include both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, because there's not going to be perfect.
It's not going to be perfect.
Impossible.
But yeah, standard deduction exemptions, because I saw them like, man, come on, guys.
Right?
Come on. And so it was so funny. Every year we have the CPA day at the Capitol.
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to some students, and they thought it was the funniest thing on the planet that these legislators are confused standard deductions and exemptions. They're like, what? We learned that at basic. I'm like, I know.
But
that's what now the one saving grace was that in that bill, it did not take effect for another year. The one they've done just recently, they don't give them time to go back and fix it. They made it effective immediately, which is the worst possible thing, because when you're dealing with something that complicated, you want to delay. When someone gets it, they start reading it, they're like, wait a second, this is going to create $1 billion hole in the budget for the first time since I've been there. First time. And so what the governor did was it created a $1.2 billion hole. And then...
So you say hole in the budget, that means...
we have to be balanced.
Okay.
Governor sets a revenue estimate. We spend to that revenue estimate, and we're done. Goes to the House, then goes to the Senate. We pass a budget. Well, unfortunately, after that happened, was this tax bill passed on the last day, last hour, midnight or so, and it changed those revenue estimates, but we never changed the budget. So the governor came back and said, okay, now we're short $1 billion, which we're not supposed to be because we have to balance
the budget. Yeah,
and so he cut $300 million out. But it was only things like foster care, school transportation, lunches. Retirement for state employees. It was the things that both chambers had agreed on that passed overwhelmingly, that this will help our communities, this will help the state. But because they passed a tax bill raising the standard deduction and cutting the rates, and they're like, well, you wanted to raise the deduction. I'm like, you can't do both. Everybody has a budget. You want this, you want that. Maybe you cut both of them, but you can't do both. You can't lower your rate and raise your standard deduction and think everything's going to work out.
Yeah,
and that's
the
what
math
they did.
just doesn't
The math
math.
did not math. And we are required by law to do what's called a fiscal note as well. So every bill that we do should have a little page that's attached that says, this is how much it's going to cost the state. They stopped doing those things for the most part. And so 463, if you ask...
What's 463?
Is the income tax bill that changed the standard deduction this year. If you ask how much that costs, they can't tell you, because they're like, well, we have an earlier version that didn't apply. But again, we're passing bills now.
The speed at which we're trying to get things done, it's reflective in what we're talking about. That's exactly it. And we're seeing it in everybody's lives and everything that they're doing. We're not necessarily making good decisions. Everybody, because we don't have time to make good decisions.
Correct.
And we're venting about tax law because that's what gets
that's what we understand.
That's what we understand. But there are other bills that I've seen that I'm like, someone needs to walk me through this. I don't know what the heck you people are talking about. But we've lost that respect for the other side of, walk me through what this means, because that's not my specialty.
Yeah, and we get it done over the summer. So I was just at a conference, and I've talked to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and we talked about what the bill does and how to maybe make it better, but it's hard to do that when they've got 40 days and they're trying to pass it. You have to have those conversations outside of session.
I didn't know that there was the retirement piece that always has to be 2 years. I'm excited that exists at all. I'm like, how do we make that for all of them?
We need to do it for all income tax bills, and there will be a bill. The bill was dropped several years ago, and I will bring it back this year. This is a perfect example of why we don't need to do this.
It's hazardous.
It's hazardous to people's pockets. I mean, you think you're giving somebody relief, but then every time they go to the grocery store or they buy gas, again, they're paying more than what they paid before.
So does your family actually understand what you're doing all the time? Are they forgiving that you're gone for half the year?
Nah, they do. I'm fortunate because I live in the metro area, so I get to go home every day.
Okay.
I balance sleep and work, and like I'll get up early, and yeah, they're great about it. So.
All right, I have to ask, how did the path get you here? You told us in general.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I was involved in politics, what your dad did, impacting youth, but take me from how did you get to A&T? We got to talk about A&T.
Oh yeah.
Can we not?
Yes.
And then I want, what I love about doing this, and you've heard me say, and I'll say it again, I care about people, world cares about money. The more people who know about money, better the world will be.
Exactly.
Which means more people need to get involved in this kind of stuff. Normalize it for me. How did you get
So I
here?
was good at math. The key is keep options open. That's the first thing. I was good at math coming out of high school. Didn't know what I wanted to do. And so, of course, at the time, it was all engineering. And I looked at them like, I do not want to be an engineer. Went to A&T because A&T had a great engineering program and a great accounting program. And so between those two,
Beaker's tired.
between those two, I ended up selecting accounting, and just kind of fell in love with the people aspect of accounting as well as the numbers. I mean, it was basic math. Debits have to equal credits, keeps the world in alignment, and and some opportunities, and also along the way, the great mentorship. I worked at Eastman Kodak for a summer, and the interview style, because coming out of high school, I grew up in a military family.
Okay.
You didn't practice, interviewing. You didn't practice this, and so going along the way, I had people who would say, "Okay, make sure."
So you didn't all the way through have the whole college prep, and you're going to do this,
No. When you get there, my brother went to A&T. I was like, "Sounds good to me," and so I went to A&T, and I remember the first interview. When I got done, they're like, "You're great. This is what you need to do going forward when you talk to a company." And so I was like, "Okay, so now I know." So you got tips along the way. So I try to be very understanding as well when I talk to the young people, and when I talk to people that are looking at a different profession, is how do you mentor, but not be overly mentory, but how do you understand
so
potential.
Not to lecture them?
You don't lecture, but just give tips. Hey, this is the tips, and then you kind of help them along the way. And so after going to A&T, I came down to Atlanta, worked for Deloitte & Touche for a number of years, and then went into private industry. And so.
And when you went to Deloitte, were you audit? Were you tax?
I was audit.
Okay.
I did my 3 and FLE. I did 3 years of audit, and I was out of there.
3 and FLE.
And then
I haven't heard that before.
So I did my 3 and FLE. Yeah.
You made sure you got your exam.
I got my exam, and I
got
got my CPA license, because at the time you needed 2 years work experience, and then you get your CPA license with the undergrad degree, and then it got changed, and then fortunately, in the last few years with the work of the Georgia Society of CPAs and my fellow CPA, we got that changed back to give people the option of going back to the way it was before with undergrad and 2-year work experience or a graduate degree. So I think that was huge.
I have been pushing that to so many people, because it's like, it's not making it easier. It's opening the different avenues to come this way.
Exactly.
It's not, you can't make the test easier. That's
you
not
can't,
what
no,
this
no,
is.
No, correct.
That's not what this is, but it's, the profession unintentionally was eliminating a significant portion of the population who, there are things like, I can't afford a 5th year of school.
Exactly.
I don't want more loans.
Exactly.
Or there are people who their career path, they've been doing it forever and should be CPAs, but they don't meet so just the opening the pathways of.
It's back to the affordability. When we talk about affordability, there's so many other things that you can do to make sure that people can move to that next step in their career. But it should, to your point, it should not cost you the tens of thousands of dollars.
It reminds me of before it was normal that people worked remotely.
Yes.
Us accountants, attorneys, and bankers were usually the last to adopt anything. And I have been working for a firm, and I was trying to get them to embrace people should be able to work remotely. And it was, it's like, no, the issue is we keep trying to give them, they have to have a reason, but then that means their reason has to make sense to you.
Yes.
That's what creates it being unfair. It's anyone can work remotely 1 day a week. Well, how do we know we're working? Do you know how many tracking mechanisms we have? If they're not working, that's a different issue. That had nothing to do with them being at home. But having that perspective of, that's not what makes them a fit, that they're here and you can see them. What makes them a fit is other things. And so what makes them a fit isn't just the 150 hours. And what that goal had been designed to do wasn't actually what it was. It turned into a barrier instead of something that was an indication of their ability.
Correct. No, I agree.
Even though that wasn't what the plan was. But so yes, you're right. So the pathway has gone such that we can expand capacity? Because we've talked about before, this is a great profession because you did your Deloitte, then you left, and then you did, because what you do is not a typical CPA stuff.
So yeah, I worked in corporate, accounting for a couple of years, and then I started since '99. I do what they call project accounting. At the time, my wife, when I first started doing it, my wife would call me a high-priced temp because I would go in and basically you provide staffing, when someone leaves. So let's say a company their CFO, their controller leaves, they need someone to jump in and fill that role. So basically my job is to go in and whatever the person that needs help, I could do their job, but I'm there to help them get it done. And so that's just
so you're not just doing their job, you're also you're onboarding them so that they can do the job and that you can then
potentially
leave.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
and sometimes somebody will transition to another role. Let's say they want to put a system in place and the person that fills that role right now wants to go work on the system implementation. I can go in and backfill that role. Or someone leaves and takes another job somewhere else, I can go backfill that role. So it's really when you need somebody that can jump in immediately and then help with that, and been doing that. It's been a growing profession for a number of years, but yeah, I've been doing that since 27 years. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's a little while.
It's a little while.
You've been doing it for a little while. But that means that your perspective is extremely broad.
I try. I do. And you realize that you have to jump from where I'm coming in and just, what do you need? Help. And then you're
Just
coming from the
tactical.
legislature. Yep, from the legislature or whatever that role may be. So
But
I
that's
get both worlds. I get both worlds,
But
which I
that's
like.
probably why you said the reputation that you have, people know that you understand and you're going to be broad-based and look at things from a certain perspective because do you do that as a business
I would
too?
hope so, yeah.
You do that as a business too?
Yeah.
All right, so I got to ask, the worst and best part of what you do.
The best part is the opportunity to meet with different people, see different things, be involved in policy that impacts the state of Georgia. And so again, as policy co-chair for our caucus, I've been very involved in whether it's the tax policy or even when we had special session. My colleague Stacey Evans and I.
Special session?
Yeah, we
What
had a
does that
special
mean?
session.
What does that mean?
So you might have heard on the news that after a Supreme Court ruling, a lot of states were redistricting across the South, trying to redraw lines. And so our caucus had to prepare for that. And so I was involved heavily in the preparation for our caucus to be ready to go. And that means having a lot of meetings, whether local, whether in DC, working with all of our members who were involved about how this might impact their districts and how to communicate it. Fortunately, during the special session, they backed off and decided not to redraw lines. But being involved in those type of things, because it doesn't impact our job, it impacts who represents you. And so these districts were just done. People are getting tired of having a new representative every 2 years because the lines get gerrymandered.
They keep
and
moving.
So our job is to make sure that people have some type of certainty as far as who represents them, so that when they do have questions, they know who to call, and it's not changing every week. So that's a great part of the job. The downside is realizing that people want to do what's right, but trying to get them to do it sometimes is hard. and so you don't take it personal. You're like, the longer you've been there, you don't take it as personal. You're like, okay, look, this is going to hurt your people more than mine. So I'm trying to tell you why this is going to happen. So, that's the downside of it. And I get past the politics because we truly are a reflection of society. So if you think politics is bad, just go to your local HOA meeting. Go to your community. I mean, people are. It's just as bad. Go to a PTA meeting. It really is. So I would say the downside is just realizing that getting people to focus on the best and not worry about the politics until later, because that will come. I mean, if you're taking care of your people, then everything will work out. But I mean, I enjoy it. I must. 16 years. Every once in a while, you'll run into a roadblock where people that are in power may not be doing the right thing, but time usually takes care of that. And so, but yeah, that's probably the worst part of it.
So the CPA profession, people always put us in you guys are tax people or you're audit people. That we know that it's much broader than that.
Yes.
But in that lane, everyone, bane of our existence is usually taxes is more than just April 15th.
Yes.
Well, you just type in the numbers and you hit send right on the No, bane of our existence. What do you think is the bane of your existence that people have a misconception about what our legislators do, what our elected leaders do?
That we don't care. That's probably the bane of the existence, is that we don't care, or we know everything that happened and we were responsible for it, that we're not advocating for them. And I think that happens probably more than it should, because people really are trying their best. And again, a bunch of different professions, you're not going to understand everything. And then people now, we have such a dominant personality in DC that it's causing people to kind of pull back sometimes on communicating issues when they disagree with their party, put it that way. And so those type of things is trying to help people get to where they need to be and getting past that. But, you know, again, it's a great opportunity. And so, you know, you caught me on a good day. You should catch me on a bad day when I'm like, this thing's terrible, you know. But no, you know, again, where else can you go to work with 179 other people from all across the state, whether it's, you know, Oglethorpe County down to, you know, down to Camilla, Georgia, down to, you know, to the coast, you know, everybody is slightly different. And so it makes for a good opportunity, put it that way.
So speaking of which, okay, someone's having that day.
Yeah.
They got their property tax bill and it's a bit insane, or they truly don't understand. What do they do? How do they find you? Who do they find?
Okay.
What do they say? What do you do?
First, what they need to do is everybody has sent out the assessment notice that tells you what your house is worth. We need to fix that notice. The notice is garbage. That's the technical term for it. Because what it used to say is, this is the value of your home, this is the new value of your home, this is what you're going to expect to pay property taxes. The assessors didn't like getting calls because people thought they were bills. And so what they did was they changed the form to basically say, this is your value, this is your new value, and that was pretty much it. And
okay, so I'm not crazy.
It was terrible.
Because I see at the top, this is not a bill, and but it gave me no information.
It gave you no information, and I'm like,
okay,
guys,
okay.
this is
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I kept
so,
going, am I reading this wrong?
And
like I said, I do as I'm a number, so I'm flipping back and forth like, am I missing?
There is nothing.
Okay,
and so, again, I'll know one tax commissioner, again, I mentioned Cobb, they actually took the old form and created a website, a web tool, where you can go type in your address and it will show you the amounts again. Because we have this argument with the assessors. The assessors will say that all this notice is for is your old assessment, your new assessment. The reality for most people, for everybody, is my assessment's great. I get it. It went up.
How much am I going to pay?
That's awesome. That's awesome. My value went up. Then I see how much I'm going to pay. I'm like, oh, my value didn't go up that much. I care about what that dollar amount is. But this notice doesn't give you that. But what they did was, so they said that for a couple of years. Then this year, they decided to put on there how much you're saving. So now you see a dollar amount, but it's a savings amount based on exemptions. I'm like, if you can calculate that, you can calculate the old one. So what we need to do is we need to go back to actually thinking about people. And the great thing about the legislature is we have legislators, elected officials, and that's our job to represent our constituents and pass bills. We have lobbyists like ACCG, which represents the counties, and GMA, which represents the cities. They represent the counties and cities. And so if we get together and I'm representing the constituents, they're representing the government, these different governments, we should come up with a good bill. The problem is sometimes it gets out of whack where we're not doing a good enough job.
The elected leaders are functioning for the government versus functioning for the constituents.
Or they function so much for the constituents they forget about the government.
I see.
Because again, you could cap revenues, but then when someone goes to their county and I'm on the Silver Common Trail and I can't ride it anymore because they cut funding, or that community center where seniors go for daily activities gets closed because they don't have funding. Well, yeah, you fought against the government, but you hurt your citizens. And so understanding how we make sure that all those function correctly. This assessment notice is purely because the assessors that work for county said we don't want people to know what it is. So we have to fix that notice. The other thing we have to fix that I'm hearing is the paper note, the notice that goes to the paper, because it says, based on this, your property tax is going up by that, even though your taxes aren't going up. So everybody has to run this ad across the state that says, because values are going up, your taxes are going to go up, even though your taxes aren't going up because you may have different exemptions. So like I said, the notification requirements, you're staring at me because it doesn't make any sense to anybody else either.
I'm looking at you very confused.
Before we even get into how many taxes people pay, we have to fix the notifications, whether it's the assessment notice, whether it's the notice in the papers. We just have to make sure people have accurate information.
I'm laughing because this is a commercial and self-promotion. Last week before, I don't know, one of the newsletters, I do a Tax Translator newsletter. And I don't remember what my official title was, but I think even halfway through, I said, okay, yes, this is the Cecily Needs to Vent newsletter. And it was absolutely things that are customer service that seem to be irrelevant.
Yep.
It is, I'm doing what's convenient for me. You as a customer can't read it, can't understand it. Why is that relevant? Well, it used to be relevant. And then this is the instance like, well, and there's I can't remember what product it is, but they're doing a commercial that's saying, we keep trying to create more ways for the computer and robot to interact with people. Why don't we just have a person interact with the person?
Exactly.
It's a bank. Now, the ironic thing is it's a bank. Don't get me started on banks. But, it's a robot trying to pour coffee. And just have a person here. You're creating more issues. Mm-hmm. You're creating more phone calls, more disgruntled people, more people who don't understand because you're trying to do something that's easy. Well, if I hit the button this way, it's easier on my side. But you just created it harder on their side.
Exactly.
So it's
and that's what we do.
It's about to be worse.
Yep. And that's what happens. That's what happens. And it's not intentional. It's like, this is bad. I mean, because again, it confuses people on the back end. And this is where we need to get our local officials to understand, because they complain about that notice, but when we're drafting bills at the Capitol, they're like, I'm not going to get into that. I'm like, wait a second. The reason you're having these hearings, the reason that is such a problem is because the legislature needs to understand better what you do. Mm-hmm. And they're like, but my millage rate's not saying the same. I'm not raising anything. I'm like, well, then you need to.
But how would I know that? Right,
exactly.
Help me, help you.
Help me, help you. And they're like, well, I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, we've done what we can do. Now it's up to y'all to
actually
light the fire. But yeah,
tax stuff.
We can go all day with notices. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you, this is a side note, but if you have money, the sheetables, like unclaimed property. Mm-hmm.
Instead what did you call that?
Sheetables. They used to call them back in the day. Sheetables. Okay. Sheetables, I guess. But unclaimed property. Let's stick with that. You were at a job. You leave that job. They get their last paycheck for you. They never get to you.
They can't find you.
They can't find you. They send it to the state. The state has billions of dollars. Other states have made it easy to get that money to you. We've been working down that path. What Georgia decided a year ago was we're going to let companies do it for you. So now these companies can send you a letter. I'm like, okay, we've got to fix that, because someone came to me, they're like, hey, I got this letter and I got this money, and they got it notarized. I'm like, wait a second, stop. Because that $500 check they were supposed to receive is only $400 because they took 20% out. And I'm like,
well, because the company has
to get it.
I don't blame the company. They're doing the job. They're not going to do it for free.
Make it easier for people to get it. And because all you had to do was, I'm like, okay, stop, go to the state website and pull it up. And he's like, oh, it says right there that I have money over $50. You submit a claim, they process it. The challenge is that, let's say you wanted to find something for your husband. You can't do that in Georgia law. Georgia law is one of the few that says you have to only look for yourself. You can't look for family members. So these outside companies, they can get all that information.
They're making bank.
They can make bank. But me, I have to click a button that says I have a right to this property. Not my family has, and again, unless I want to pay a company.
As someone who does this for a living, that's frustrating. Because do you know how many people I do that for?
Yeah.
That you were the one in your family who goes, here, let me find, here it is, here's where you do, here's how you find, here's, let me show you how to sign it, I'll take you to,
it's common sense.
They call us to do that.
But
that's
you
what
have
we
to
do.
go through a process. You have to go through a process to get that fixed. But that's common sense for people. I mean, that should be.
Yeah.
If it's my money, give it back to me.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to jump through hoops or pay somebody 20% of your money.
Fee.
So yeah, that's a whole nother
for
another day.
To the end.
We're
gonna have to do this again.
Oh, most definitely.
And we'll make sure it's not during session. You've made that clear that is not a possible thing. So
unless you come down to the Capitol, we'd have to do that.
Well, I come. I do come. I do CPA day.
Yeah, you do.
Because as much as we like things to just happen naturally, they don't.
Exactly.
People need to be involved and understand how it impacts. And for me, it's taxes impact everything.
Exactly.
Everything. So Tell us, David, the Honorable David Wilkerson. Where do we find you? What's going on? You said you're about to do a tour.
Yeah, so yes, we'll be starting a tour soon across the state, talking about affordability, which we've been talking about for quite some time, and going to different cities and across the state and counties to talk about property taxes, and also really to listen to people, because the General Assembly is going to have a study committee that's going to talk to government from 10 to 12. Well, most people are working during the day. We're going to have these at night and on weekends where we can go out across the state. Easy way to reach me is on the General Assembly website. My email is david.wilkerson@house.ga.gov. And that's a great place to find me, or wilkersonforgeorgia.com is my personal website. But yes, I'm available. Would love to hear from people, because again, at the end of the day, with Senate Bill 33, the question is, do you want to create a new sales tax with the hope of reducing property taxes? No guarantee, but with the hope of reducing property taxes.
And even though it's unconstitutional, it's still the law of the land and still going
until
forward.
Somebody sues.
Until someone does something and it might be retroactive, but it is the law.
It is the law right now.
Law.
Nobody has put this, because right now this would be called the L host. This tax, it's L host. We also have the flossed, we have the lost, we have the most, we have the E-host, which are all supposed to reduce property taxes. So if the E-host hasn't done it, the most hasn't done it, the lost hasn't done it, the floss hasn't done it, what makes you think the L-host is going to do it? So I'll leave it at that.
Got a point. Thank you. I appreciate you spending the time with me today. And listeners, please like and subscribe at the Tax Translator on all platforms. And yes, you'll see the Tax Translator podcast is on 2 YouTube channels, and that's intentional. Us CPAs, we need credit, so that you'll see it on the Georgia Side of CPAs channel, but you will also see it on the Accountant You Can Understand's YouTube channel. So like and subscribe, and if you're ever really wanting to get a little more understanding in English about taxes, check out the accountantyoucanunderstand.com. There's a free checklist. What I wish someone had told me about working with my CPA. The accountantyoucanunderstand.com, and you will see the Tax Translator every other Tuesday. Looking forward to it. Like and subscribe. Thank you.